Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. My presentation is titled People, Power, and Sausages. And so you might ask, so what does all of that have to do with sausages? And rest assured, you will know by the end of the presentation, I hope. Can I get the remote control? So what I'll do is I talk about two examples, or two experiments. One from Germany, Open Knowledge Foundation Germany, one from Indonesia, Open Data Lab Jakarta. So I've been involved with both organizations in different capacities over the past 4 or 5 years. And I'm building on that experience to demonstrate how powerful sort of citizens and communities and crowds are if there's the suitable technology used. So the first experiment is, as I said, from Germany, Open Knowledge Foundation. We did the project or the experiment with another organization called Abgeordnetenwatch, and it's about transparent lawmaking, or the lawmaking process in Germany that is not very transparent. So to start with a quote, laws are like sausages, it is better not to see them being made. And I'd like to get a show of hands who agrees with this statement. Okay, there's a few. Which part of the statement? The sausages and the laws? Okay, only the sausages. Okay, makes me happy. So in early 2017, the Ministry of Transport in Germany announced it had drafted a law that would make climate and weather-related data publicly available. So as an organization working on a disclosure and use of public sector information, we were happy and we welcomed that move. And so we were trying to find out more about the law, or the draft law. So Arne here, which is a team member of the organization of Open Knowledge Foundation, he called the ministry and said, the press department, can we please get a copy of the draft law, because we want to know what's in there. They said, no, they don't have it. So we called the newspaper that published the article on that draft law, said, no, we don't have it either. But they said, why don't you try with the DPA, which is a German press agency, because our article is based on a press release. He called them, no, we don't have it. So we thought, or he thought, God, why is it so difficult to find a draft law? Everyone is writing about it, no one knows what's really in there. So we thought, he thought, well, let's just call the department within the ministry in charge of the law. So we looked at the organogram, he called them, no response, email, no response. So finally, he remembered that he had a conversation with an expert on that particular topic a couple of weeks ago. So he called that person, said, of course I have it, I can send it to you. And within 10 minutes, the document was in his inbox. And then he took that law, sent it to the ministry saying, by the way, here's your law, so in case you're looking for it. So what does it tell us about the lawmaking process in Germany? Well, it's difficult for citizens to actually know what goes into the lawmaking process, who's involved, how lobby organizations provide statements and input. So what we did was we called each and every ministry and suggested to them, why don't you proactively disclose all the documents, so the draft documents, but also the statements by lobbyists on your website, so everyone can see what's in there. And so we know how a certain law was made and what went into the lawmaking process. Most of the ministries politely declined, unfortunately. So we thought, okay, we have to take this to the next level. So we set up a platform that you can see here, well, most of it you can see here. And we listed 17,000 documents, draft laws, lobbyist statements on that platform. And we then launched a campaign. So we put it online, and we invited citizens to click on a button that you can see here if they were interested in a certain law or a statement, to click on a button which would automatically generate a Freedom of Information request to that specific ministry. Yeah? So you know what happened? This happened. Within 7 days, over 1,600 Freedom of Information requests were made by over 1,200 people. Now you might say, well, you know, that's good, but it's not impressive. But just to put it into perspective, in 2016, there were fewer requests made in the whole of, the entire year than in those 7 days of the campaign. So we got calls and emails, we invited to meetings, we had some controversial discussions, and so after 7 days, we put a campaign on hold because the government was completely flooded with information requests, completely overwhelmed. And so after 3 weeks of high-level meetings, internal coordination within government, they decided to publish all the documents online on the various ministry websites. But the devil is in the detail. They only publish those documents from the specific term of the government, so the past 4 years. But there was no clarity whether they would do or stick to that practice in the future. So it took us, 1.5 years, and just 2 weeks ago, on the 15th of November, the government decided in the future, by default, they would publish all the documents proactively. So we're using that approach in another project now, which is called Open Shufa, which is all about getting or shedding light on the black box that are these algorithms that determine your personal credit score. So what you see here is that we're collected data from close to like 5,000 or 6,000 individuals, their individual scores, to reverse engineer the algorithm of one of the biggest, the largest credit scoring agency in Germany. Happy to talk about this in the Q&A. I'm not going to go into detail here, but jump to the next example. So the next one is from Indonesia, and so it's a project or an experiment implemented by the Open Data Lab Jakarta that I've been involved with for the past couple of years, and it's about mining and deforestation. So what you see here is a picture of Indonesia, and deforestation is a huge problem in Indonesia. It has all sorts of governance challenges, and one of the issues, or one of the major causes of deforestation, is mining concessions. So in 2014, the provincial government of Aceh, which is in the northern part of Indonesia, put into effect a mining moratorium. And the positive results or the effects were that concessions went down significantly, and the forest area as well, forest area for mining. So now you might ask, what does that have to do with the Open Data Lab Jakarta and open data and empowering citizens through data? So the work that the Jakarta Lab does is, with citizens training, getting access to data, supplying government data, building skills of how to use that data. And since the very beginning of the lab in 2014, we've been working with an organization called Gerak Aceh, which is a local anti-corruption watchdog based in Aceh. So what they've done over the past few years was collect mining-related data and information from different government departments. They put it online on a data portal for citizens to see. They were able to analyze it, visualize it, make sense of the data. So they built a very granular understanding of the issues around mining in Aceh. Now, when in 2016 there was a discussion around the extension of the moratorium, they took their data visualizations and their very detailed knowledge of the issue to the streets. So what you can see is these data visualizations that they produced as part of the Open Data project, and they organized a protest. So they advocated for an extension of the moratorium. They were saying there's so many issues with the mining companies not paying their taxes. There's overlaps between the concession areas and primary forest and conservation areas, when none of this is resolved. And so it took a while, but then after a couple of weeks, they were able to convince the provincial government to extend the moratorium. And the moratorium is still in effect, or was extended again in January this year, and now that they're in discussions about another extension. So what does it tell us? I would say, the not so secret ingredients here are three things. One is rules, or regulation or policy. In Germany, it's a freedom of information law that made it all possible. In the case of Aceh, it's the mining moratorium. Secondly, technology. So in an online platform in Germany where citizens or people could go to, submit their request, and the request would automatically go to the ministry. In Aceh, it was the data portal and the data analysis. And thirdly, people. So maybe the most important factor, it might not have been possible without a crowd, both online in the case of Germany, where over 1,200 people actually submitted a freedom of information request, and in the case of Aceh, where people protested on the streets. Now, I'll finish with a quote. I'm so insulted when people say that lawmaking is like sausage making. So it's a small piece of advice. Whenever there's a sausage maker in the room, don't use that comparison, because they might get offended. Thank you.